Hello, I'm Nick Trott and I'm the editor of Evo magazine, and today I have with me Ryan, who is the assistant editor of denofgeek.com. Now Ryan, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, we're here today to talk about cars, chases, crossing the line, movies and more cars.
So it's a John Frankenheimer classic. This is Ronin. Everyone loves Ronin, don't they?
I would have thought so. It's the law, isn't it? So like
absolutely.
Ronin?
If you're into cars or into films, John Frankenheimer, absolute genius director. So this car chase is intense, probably as intense as anything from the Bourne films or anything like that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So tell us what's happening in the film, what's leading up to this moment.
See, that's an interesting question because I've seen this film 3 or 4 times now. I wouldn't profess to know what's going on, but I do know that it has something to do with a briefcase, which Robert De Niro's character and his crew of expert criminals and thieves, they've been hired by Natasha McElhone's character, whose name is Deirdre. Deirdre, yeah. They've been hired to retrieve this briefcase, and then at some point in the film, it becomes that Robert De Niro wants to get the briefcase back from Deirdre.
Right.
Deirdre.
Yeah.
So hence this chase. Deirdre is in a BMW M5 and she's off through Paris.
Yeah.
And then Robert De Niro with the great John Reno in the passenger seat. They're in a Peugeot 406, bless them. I don't know what short straw De Niro drew to get the 406 when Deirdre gets, you know, one of the coolest saloon cars of the 90s.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, the M5, especially that era with the turbine alloy wheels, it's the car that us car geeks get really excited about. And Frankenheimer, again, is quite respectful of that car and how it drives and the way that it moves on the road and the way it oversteers. It looks like a naturally very well balanced car. And of course it is, you know, it is in real life. So yeah, and there's De Niro wrestling with a 406. So it's
bless him.
Yeah, bless him. But it's great, isn't it? I mean, the chat is instant action, isn't it? There's no messing around here. They're straight into it, and there's a fair amount of collateral damage as well.
There's lots of collateral damage. A surprising amount of fire. I'm not sure what Frankenheimer thought about European cars. Or just assumed
they just combust, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. No one is safe from the menace of French cars.
Yeah.
But it's imaginative, which is more than you could say about some car chases from the 90s. That it really plays with the Paris location really interestingly. You know, it kind of goes through, you know, sort of quiet sort of squares and you know, and then highways and tunnels, and you know, it's the kind of the tunnel where it kind of it gets really intense. Really, you could say. It's
I mean, talking about the kind of the car dynamics, I mean, the M5 is, I think it's beautifully shot. You know, you can see there's some low down shots where you see the car oversteer and the wheels turn to correct. Even the 406, which is obviously the most unlikely car chase car ever probably, but you know, you can see the way that car is being driven to its limit and beyond. As I say, there's some really kind of like respectful kind of, you know, shots of the car, and a lot of that comes from Grand Prix, I'm sure. You know, the 60s classic from Frankenheimer, where he developed a lot of the techniques that he used, you know, throughout.
And also the French Connection too, as well, which got some fantastic car chases in it. Yeah. But it's an oddly, it's a strange car, the 406. It keeps turning up, because it was in the Taxi, the Luc Besson film, and all those sequels. You know, it had a magical spoiler and all sorts of things. But it's the cool thing about Ronin is that it feels 70s and it feels retro in a very, very cool way. You know, by this point, Frankenheimer's, you know, already very sort of seasoned, you know, a veteran of filmmaker. But this still feels like a cool film, partly because of the cast and partly because, you know, some brilliant stunt work. Yeah, and to this day, it's you know, it stood the test of time. It still excites. You know, I think I mean, it's easy to kind of pick holes in stuff like this, but I think for me, De Niro just looks terrified, and probably is, because wasn't he actually kind of in the passenger seat of some shots with a kind of a fake steering wheel set up, and the actual stunt driver was on the other side. So those moments where he's if he doesn't look like he's fully in control, it's because he wasn't.
He wasn't, no, not at all. So what happens in this chase where it comes to a head, when something happens and okay, you know that the climax is about to happen? Well,
it becomes apparent that Deirdre has no particular compassion for other road users. That becomes apparent in there's several tunnel sequences, but the first one we see a police car kind of comes into view, and you know, she's ice cold, just dispatches it with a flick of a wrist.
That's
it's
brilliant,
gone.
isn't it? It's just one movement, and the ZX, I think, sits with these cars upside down. Yeah.
And it just and it carries on. You know, you've got you've got some great location shots. You've got the bridge, which I forget the name of it, unfortunately, but it's by the Seine.
Yeah.
And it comes up again in Inception.
Yeah.
So it kind of takes us through this grand tour, full of chaos and destruction and more fire.
Yeah.
And then it kind of comes to an end on an unfinished highway, which is another staple of car chases, surely.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. So so they get into a position where the M5 just has nowhere to go, and it just kind of drifts. It actually kind of sort of slows down, and then it just falls off, doesn't it? Really, there's no, slow motion where it's flying through the air and flames and thunder and everything. It just has this almost a slightly sad demise, where it just sort of drops over. And I kind of mourned for the loss of the M5. I was rooting for the M5. I know I probably shouldn't have been. It was the M5 as the driver's choice there. So. But it's one of the best car chases ever, isn't
Definitely,
it?
and also really influential. I think we covered the Bourne Supremacy in another one of these films, and you can sort of see some of the I think some of the way that it's edited, and some of the camera moves and things.
Yeah.
You can see some of the influence. It's a gritty, real. Yeah. For a action thriller, it's a very gritty, realistic car chase. It's great.
Yeah, it's a pioneering chase, and John Frankenheimer at his best, no doubt.